Well, baseball. I have to confess it's my favorite sport. Now that, yeah, you got one on. What's on the other side? Okay, good. Just want to make sure it's not a Red Sox. Or Yankees, even worse. I mean, I could have a wall of shame here for, I just picked out 5 players that we might mention. Jose Canseco, outfielder for several teams. He never could stick with one team, apparently. When he was a rookie with the Oakland A's back around 87, 88, he started, well, he perhaps was using them before then, but started building up his muscles with anabolic steroids. And one of his teammates was Mark McGwire in those days. He apparently, as the story goes, convinced McGwire that he could build up his muscle mass by using steroids, anabolic steroids, and perhaps many other players as well. And all this was hushed up. I mean, there might have been isolated reports coming out of baseball at the time, well into the 90s and even into the current century. But it all came to a head when Canseco decided to spill the beans on everybody. And he wrote a book called Juiced. I think it came out around 2005, so it was 7 years ago. His book, Juiced, named names, named McGwire, named several other people, and told how he had been a purveyor of these drugs to his teammates. Well, that was where the proverbial stuff, hit the fan, because that got the attention of Congress. And why does it get the attention of Congress? Because baseball is special. Not because of a sport that's loved by millions of people, but because it enjoys something that no other sport enjoys something that very few businesses or industries enjoy, and that is antitrust exemption. What does that mean? Well, for example, that, Ford and GM, separate companies, they have to be very careful about how they compete in the marketplace. Because if they start colluding with one another, they can be charged with antitrust activities. And the government cracks down on those. Baseball is exempt from that. Because years ago, way back, probably close to 100 years ago, around the time of the Black Sox scandal, there was a case in which baseball was sued for antitrust activities, and the decision came from the Supreme Court that baseball is exempt from that. So, for example, 2 baseball teams can collude with one another to prevent another team from coming into a market, for example. And we know from past history that it's not unheard of that baseball owners collude with one another to not sign certain free agents, for example. Remember Kirk Gibson? I think it was Kirk or Jack Morris. I think it was Jack Morris or Kirk Gibson, one of the two, where the accusation was that the owners colluded, that nobody would sign them. And legally, they could do that. Morally, that's a different question. Ethically, it's a different story. But the press really got on that case. And about a year later, they, in fact, became free agents. But anyway, that was the issue. Congress got involved. So Congress hauled several of these players, including Canseco and McGwire, before a hearing. What's going on? What's been going on? Well, several of the players started to talk. McGuire, to his great discredit, basically took the Fifth Amendment. He didn't talk. He said, that's past. I don't want to talk about the past. Well, that didn't sit well with many senators. And in fact, we now know, and he has admitted to having used steroids in the past, and it has certainly not helped his reputation or his chances to get into the Hall of Fame. And then we have more recently, Manny Ramirez for the LA Dodgers was slapped with a 50-game suspension. And I think we all know, even if you don't know anything about baseball, you've heard about Barry Bonds, who's the all-time home run hitter. And we'll talk a little bit more about Barry Bonds, who holds the single-season home run record as well. I believe he had, is it 75? 75. He beat McGuire's record. McGuire had 73, I think, in 1 year. Or 67. No, okay. And then a more interesting case that appears to have been resolved just a few weeks ago is Ryan Braun of the Milwaukee Brewers, who was the MVP, the most valuable player in the National League last year. And right after the season, it was reported, ESPN got the report. It was actually Major League Baseball tried to hush it up, but somebody leaked it to ESPN that Ryan Braun had failed a drug test for steroids. Well, then, of course, the word was out, and Ryan Braun was suspended for 50 games. Of course, that would be the start of this season. However, in a most unusual move, Braun contested it. Most players don't legally contest their suspensions, but he did. He said there was a flaw in the process, and he cited what the flaw was, and in fact it went before an arbitration panel, a 3-person arbitration panel, one person representing the commissioner's office, another person representing the players' union, so you can imagine that their votes sort of canceled each other out. And a third person, supposedly neutral, ruled in favor of Braun. First time that a suspension for a drug violation has been overturned. And we'll see that Braun's contention was that he had never used steroids, and also his contention that the one that really stuck was the flaw in the handling of his samples. Because samples have to be handled no matter what the sport, or the violation, or the drug testing. There's a very specific sequence of events and how the sample is handled, how it is obtained, witnesses and all that, up through the testing and the reporting of the testing results. Very clear cut. He said there was a violation there, and on a technicality, he won his case.